This video will show you how to install the range extender accessory. At this time, the range extender is only compatible with the 2025 RadRunner Max and RadRunner Plus models, and the RadRunner 3 Plus model. The install steps will differ for each model, so pay close attention to the steps for your particular model. Start by getting the bike ready for maintenance. Turn off the bike, use the key to remove the battery, and press the power button to discharge remaining power. Remove any previously installed accessories on the rear rack, like passenger seats or baskets. You can reinstall these after you've installed the range extender. Most of the tools you need for installation are included in the box, but you will also need flat side cutters, a torque wrench with Allen bits, and 2.5 and 3 mm Allen wrenches for accessing the battery cable on the RadRunner 3 Plus model. Remove the bolts and captive washers that secured the mounting bracket to the enclosure for shipping. Set these aside for later. Locate the hardware mounting kit for your e-bike, Model 1, for the RadRunner Max and RadRunner 3 Plus. Position the bracket with the angled side facing the front of the bike and the connection on the non-drive side of the bike. Line up with the crossbar mounting points directly behind the rear rack. Position the top two connectors on the doubler box so that they are in front of the rear rack drop bar, so that when the extension cables are connected, they can be secured to the mounting boss on the drop bar. The bottom connector should be positioned under the rear rack so that it will connect to the enclosure in the next step. Thread in the M5 bolts with flat washers to secure the bracket to the crossbars, and use an Allen wrench to tighten until secure. Use a torque wrench to tighten the bolts to 4 to 6 Newton meters. Once the mounting bracket is installed, position the enclosure on top of it so that it lines up with the mounting points on the bracket. Route the small cable on the enclosure through the window in the bracket to connect to the battery doubler box. Thread in the 8 mm hex bolts with captive washers by hand through the underside of the mounting bracket into the mounting points on the enclosure, and use the provided 8 mm wrench to secure the bolts. Use a torque wrench to tighten the hex bolts to 3 to 5 Newton meters. Connect the bottom connector from the doubler box to the enclosure cable by lining up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows of each cable and pressing them together without twisting. Locate the power extension cables that correspond to your e-bike model. The RadRunner Max model will use the extension cable pair with 6-pin connectors. The RadRunner 3 Plus model will use the extension cable pair with 2-pin connectors. Connect the extension cables to the corresponding connectors on the doubler box. Locate the auxiliary power cable at the bottom of the seat tube. Cut the zip tie that secures the cable bundle in this location and pull apart the connectors without twisting. Connect the extension cables from the doubler box to the corresponding power cable connectors by lining up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows of each cable and press together without twisting. On the RadRunner 3 Plus model, the location of the power cable connectors will depend on which type of controller is installed on your e-bike. First, look at the bottom of the seat tube for an auxiliary power connector. If you find one here, connect as previously shown for the RadRunner Max model. If you do not see an auxiliary power connector, you will need to access the e-bike controller installed inside the down tube to unplug the battery cable. Flip the e-bike over and rest the handlebar on blocks or a towel to protect the display. Use a 3 mm Allen wrench to remove the 3 bolts and set washers holding the wiring harness cover in place and remove the cover. Use a 2.5 mm Allen wrench to remove the 2 bolts on the sides of the down tube end cap and remove the end cap. Locate the battery cable connector inside the down tube and pull apart without twisting to disconnect. Position the connectors so that they are accessible outside of the end cap and connect the extension cables from the doubler box to the corresponding battery cable connectors by lining up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows of each cable and press together without twisting. Carefully tuck the rest of the cables back into the down tube opening and reinstall the end cap and wiring harness cover. Use zip ties to secure the extension cables to the mounting boss locations on the frame. Use the key to unlock and open the enclosure door to install the second battery. If you have an older model, semi-integrated battery, you may need to apply the adhesive spacer to the front of the battery, where it enters the enclosure, to ensure a secure fit. Newer model, SafeShield semi-integrated batteries do not require anything else for a secure fit. Insert the second battery in the enclosure sideways so that the top of the battery with the LED lights is exposed. Close the enclosure door and remove the key. Reinstall the main battery on the e-bike and power on the e-bike. The color display will show two battery level indicators when the range extender is installed, and the average amount of charge between the two batteries. You may notice some fluctuation at first as the controller calculates battery charge. Once you begin riding, the e-bike will draw power from the battery with the highest amount of charge, and then toggle between the two batteries when they have equal amounts of charge, ensuring you always have a balanced amount of charge left. Note that the black and white display on the RadRunner 3 Plus will not show an indicator that the range extender is installed. Reinstall any accessories on the rear rack and ride rad.